right? AO. If you look at the table of the personal pronoun, it's to you guys, right? So to you guys. So this is like dative something. So to you guys. So it cannot be the subject. And then, so the subject has to come afterwards, right? Because, or else where's the subject's gonna be, right? So Theo scratch, which is this talk, this speech, or something like that. So this speech, this talk. So to translate that into modern English, we have, oh, you guys, oh, you all, children, how does this speech please to you? Like that, right? In Old English, there's no does or there's no do when you form a question. So obviously, the verb has to be in the third person, right? So that's the question, right? You guys, you children, how does this speech or this talk please to you or is pleasant to you, like that. So Lika is to be pleasant, to please someone. So to please, I think you have it, right? They should give you. So here, please. And then now we have the answer, right? Now we have the answer. So he says, well, right? Well, and then hail is what? Hail. She, right? She, third person, feminine, singular. In this case, it replaces Theo scratch, right? Because there's no she in this context. There's no a person that should be replaced by the word she. So the word she here replaces this speech, which is feminine, right? So the speech, in this case, she, which is the speech, right? Because it's feminine. The noun speech is feminine, so you use she. So the speech, the talk, pleases to us, right? The speech or the talk pleases to us, right? Us here is to us, dative, right? So the speech or the talk pleases to us, and then is but, right? But, daily, I think they give you very, right? But very heartily, very deeply, very deeply, very heartily. You, right? You, and then speech is speak, right? You see the st ending, right? St is second person. But very deeply you speak, and beyond, over is like beyond, and over and beyond our understanding, like that. It pleases to us, right? It makes us feel pleasant, but you speak very deeply and beyond our understanding, like that. That's modern English translation. And then go on, but, right? But. And then spread with us, so same thing, right? So talk with us according to or after, you see the word after, which means after or according to our understanding, right? That is so that we may, margin is may, right? You remember the word may? We may understand the thing that you say, right? Okay, let me say it again. From the end of line 2, act is but speak with us, according to our understanding, right? So that here is like so that we may understand the thing that you say. So that we may understand the thing that you say. So in other words, the children here say that the subject, the top is very difficult, beyond their understanding, so they ask the person here to speak to us in easy terms, in easy way, right? In easy ways, so that we may understand the thing that you say. Right? They here is the word that. The thing which, the thing that you speak. Okay, so going on to the next line, I, and then ask here, which is to ask. I ask to you, right? I ask to you. For we is why, right? So I ask to you why you guys learn so heartily, so deeply. I ask you guys why you learn. So learning is learn, right? Learn. You guys so heartily, so eagerly, like that. You know, L-I-C-E, liche is L-Y in modern English, right? Adverb ending, liche. Your liche, so earnestly, like that. Why do you study so earnestly, so heartily, so eagerly, like that? Now, let's look at the answer. So the guy is asking the children, I ask to you why you study so heartily, like that. So let's see how the kids answer. For them is because, right? For them is for that, which means because. Because we, Nila, you remember I said that, last time I said that when you do the negation in Old English, you have ne, right? Which means not, plus whatever verb or whatever noun you have, and sometimes they contract, right? So Nila is from ne plus will not, right? So ne plus will, which means so that we will not, right? Because, so ne is not, will is just will, right? So that we will not what? We will not, beyond is be, right? So that, or because we will not be, swa is so, right? So that we will not be so stunned is stupid, right? So that we will not be stupid. Nitinu is like animals. So that we will not be stupid animals. We study eagerly because we will not be stupid animals. They is which, right? Which. None is no one, right? None. Which, nothing. Nitan, wood, tongue, grass, and water. So, which, this is nothing, right? Nothing. And then Nitan is, again, ne plus itan. So, which eat nothing except grass and water. So they study hard so that they will not be stupid animals which eat nothing but grass and water. So they are not stupid as cows, in other words. So you guys have to study hard, okay? So that you will not be stupid animals which eat nothing but grass and water, right? According to the kids. What will ye be on? So what will you guys be then? Done is then. What will you guys be then? Want to be. What will you guys be then? What do you guys want to be? We will be on. We say we will be wise. We will be smart. We will be wise. So 20. Let's suppose that you don't know this word. Whatever it is, what tells us. Someone bought 20 something, right? 20. Actually, this word is like bags, kabang, like that. So bags or pouches, little bags, pouches. So someone bought 20, let's say something, 20 bags, 20 couches. So you need a subject, right? So the subject here has to be plural, right? Because you see the ton ending, right? So plural past tense, right? Buy, bought, like that. So this is a weak verb because you see the T here, dental suffix, right? A weak word. So which one should be correct? A, B, or C? It has to be in the subject case, right? Nominative case. So B is not correct, right? B is not correct because Tara is genitive plural. C is not correct because fam is dative plural. So the only one that's correct is Tawif, right? So Tawif is correct. Plural, right? Ta is plural. Masculine, plural for all genders, right? Plural for all genders. And for nominative and accusative case. Number 4, it, which is I gave, the word give, right? I gave, means sword, I gave my sword, right? I gave my sword. I gave my sword. So, which case are you looking for here? In modern English, I gave my sword to someone. So it has to be dative, right? So it has to be dative. So A is correct or not? Seo, not correct, right? Not correct. So now A is not correct. So we have B and C left, right? B and C left. So B is correct or not? Not correct, right? Not correct. Because ta there is accusative, right? So C is correct, dative. So to the queen. So I gave my sword to the queen. Okay? Number 5. Now, let's say that you see the verb. Let's say that you see the verb for sindon. Right? Sindon. So you know that it has to be plural, right? So plural. Of the verb, what? The verb to be, right? So something are. Winsome on yesitte. So let's suppose you don't know winsome, but you know on. On is on or in, right? Preposition. And sitte, which is the word sight. You know sight? S-I-G-H-T. Sight. To see. Something is blank on sight. So something is good, something is bad on sight, meaning when you see it, it looks good, it looks bad, like that, right? So winsome actually means pleasant. So pleasant. So something is good, something is pleasant on sight, in sight when you see it. So you have to find a nominative, right? A nominative subject. A nominative plural also. So which one is the correct answer? Ta, tara, tam. Tam cannot, right? Tam is always dative plural, right? Tara is not, right? So ta is correct. Full glass is foul. You know foul? F-O-W-L, foul. G usually becomes W, so foul like birds, all the birds. So the birds are pleasant inside, on site, when you see them. Number 6, seo femne. Femne is feminine, right? So the woman, nominative, singular, feminine, right? So femne is feminine. So seo femne, this woman, this girl, sits, right? Sits on or in, same thing. So you need a dative, right? A dative. So seo hall, A is not good. Number B, ta hall is not good because that's accusative. Number C is correct. Ta is genitive or dative. So C is correct. The woman sits in the hall. This is hall, right? Hall. The woman sits in the hall, so you need a dative because you see the preposition there. Number 7 is the same thing. So can you tell me can you tell me what's the answer? Because you have the words, same word, right? The hall, and then you have maybe a different subject, a different meaning, a different gender. Seini is the night, right? The night. So night. Gat is goes, right? From the word gan. So the night goes in, and then the hall. So the hall has to be dative, right? Dative. So there's only one answer, right? Which is similar to number 6. So it's very healthy, right? Okay, so far so good. Now, number 8. Suppose you don't know the meaning of the subject. Seo, math. So, but you know that this is the subject because of seo, subject feminine, right? And then the verb is said, which is said. So said, right? And then, and spell. So someone said the spell, spell, right? So, someone said the spell. What do you want here in the blank? What case do you want in the blank? Spell is direct object, which is accusative. So you have to find a different, right? A different kind of object, which is indirect object. So it has to be dative, right? Dative. So you have to find a dative object here. So say cannot, because say is nominative. Tone cannot, because tone is accusative. Fast cannot, because that one is genitive. So the only answer is that. Okay. The meaning of mag here is maiden, an unmarried girl, right? Maiden, and then esne is like slave. So the maiden cast the spell. The maiden said the spell to the slave. Right? Dative plural also. Slave spell, yes. Number 10. Lar. Lar is. Oh, sorry. Number 9. Number 9. We all, and then you see the verb sail that, right? Let's suppose you don't know that, but you know that it's present tense plural, right? Because of us. So we do something, and then you're supposed to have something else in the blank, and then in water, on water, right? So you do blank in water, on water. So in the blank, you should have the accusative case, right? Because you have dative place following on water, in water. So you have to look for the accusative case. So which of these is the accusative case? There's only one answer. A. Tara, no. Tam, no. Right? So we boil. The verb is boil. Vita is vegetables. So we boiled vegetables in the water. Like that. Number 10, lar. Lar is L-O-R-E. You guys know L-O-R-E. Lore, which means learning or knowledge. Like folklore, like that. Folklore, folktale, like that. So lore, learning. So 10, learning is suite, very deep. You should be able to guess. Learning is very deep, right? Learning is very deep. Learning or teaching. Learning is very deep. So you see learning is very deep. It already makes sense, right? Learning is very deep. So you have to find something that can be added that doesn't change the meaning of the whole thing, right? Learning is very deep. So how would you fill the blank here? It has to be a case that doesn't change the meaning, right? There's only one case that's possible, which is possessive or genitive, right? The learning of someone is very deep, like that, right? Because if you choose nominative, you choose accusative, it would change, right, the meaning. So the learning of someone is very deep. So you have to choose the genitive, the possessive case. There's only one answer here, which is number C, right? There's only one answer, which is that. Say, no. Say is nominative. Tone, accusative. Tam, dative, right? So the learning of the teacher, like this is like the teacher's apostrophe S. The teacher's learning is, the teacher's teaching, the teacher's learning is very deep. The teacher's knowledge is very deep, like that. So C is correct. Number 11, this one is fight, right? Futon is fight, fought, right? So fought, this one is fought, and then you need a plural subject because of O and on, right? So fought, very, sweet days, very, heartily, right? Heartily, L-I-C-E, I told you is L-Y, right? In modern English, this is L-Y. So someone fought, or some people fought very heartily, very bravely, in other words, right? So you need a subject, right? You need a nominative case. There's only one answer here. Tam, always, am, always dative, cannot. Tara, no, right? Tara is, I think, genitive in this case. So there's only one answer, which is A, the men, right? The men fought very heartily. Ta here could be nominative or accusative, right? Masculine, feminine, and neutral, plural. Number 12. I, right? It, I, and then gave, right? I gave, and then all my maras. Let's say you don't know, but I will tell you. So it means mare, M-A-R-E, mare. You know mare? Like female horse. Female horses. Mare is female horse. So I gave all my horses. Now, what do you need to fill in the blank? You already have all my horses, accusative, right? So you need a dative, right? A dative. So dative, men, right? To the men. So there's only one choice that's available, which is C. Tamman, right? Tam is always accusative, dative, right? Tamen, that's nominative. Tara, no, right? Tara is genitive. Number 13. The first word is each, right? Each, and then here has a horse. Each blank has a horse, right? Each blank has a horse. So each, what can you fill in the blank? In modern English, how would you say it? Each, and then you have man or men. So each of the men, like that, right? Each of the men, right? Each of the men has a horse, like that. So, which one is correct? Ta men, no, right? Ta is nominative, so you cannot. Tam, to the men, right? Tam, to the men, no, you cannot. So, number B is correct. Each of the men, right? Each of the men. Tara is genitive, right? Genitive. Number 14, Ega, which is I, right? Eyes, with apostrophe, eyes with S. So eyes, udon, were. The eyes were blind, right? So what do you need in the blank? It already makes sense, right? Eyes were blind. So you need something that will not change the meaning of the sentence. You cannot put nominative, you cannot put accusative, you cannot put dative. So you have to say the eyes of some people, right? Of someone, right? The eyes of someone, right? So what do you have? Number C, right? Number C. The eyes of the men, right? Or the men's eyes. The men's with apostrophe S. tone is accusative, tam is dative. So only C is correct. Number 15, heo, right? She, right? Heo is she. Heo died out afterwards, and we get she from Scandinavian. Remember? She sold. This one is she sold an apple. Now it is already complete, the sentence. She sold an apple. Then you cannot put nominative there because you already have one. You cannot put accusative there because you already have one. So you have to put to someone, right? So dative. Seman cannot because say is always nominative, right? Tone cannot because that's accusative. That's of the men. No, you cannot. So only D. To the men. Right? So to the men. She sold the apple to the men like this. Okay. So for the exam, study this one carefully, right? So I will scramble the order around, and then you just have to choose the right case endings. And all the words you already know from this one, right? So I'll use the sentences here, but I might scramble the word order around, right? And I might ask you to fill in, let's say number 12. Let's say number 12, we have the men, of the men, to the men. I might have you fill in the blank which is provided here, and I will blank it out and then give you the word man here, and then have you choose the other noun phrase. Okay. So study this one carefully for our midterm. Okay. So if we don't count that, we started out the class with language change, right? The topic of language change. So we study the causes and mechanisms of change, right? So I will ask you to describe briefly or to explain briefly the main factors of language change, right? You remember that there are two main factors, right? One is, let me write this down. Marker. So remember factors. So we have two main factors, right? So internal, right? You remember that, and then external, right? So two main factors you should know: the internal factor and then the external factor, right? So the internal factor has to do with what? So factors that are linguistic, right, inside the language. For example, for ease of articulation, so ease of articulation, you remember? So we tend to change our speech or our writing system to match what is easier, right? In the direction that is easier for us to say or to write, right? So that's one factor. And there are other factors, right? So you might want to choose your own, right? You might want to choose your own and then explain what those things are and give me specific examples, right? So this is just one. And then external factor, we have things like language contact, you remember? So language contact. So when two languages are in contact, right, remember? When two languages are in contact, what happens is, I think depending on the intensity of the contact, right? So if two languages are the contact situation is so intense, so they will borrow a lot of things, not just words, right? But grammatical things, and also even pronouns or even prepositions, right? But if the contact is kind of superficial, right, we only borrow words that we don't have, like that. Or we may not borrow a lot of words at all, right? So language contact is one issue. And then social factor is another factor that leads to language change, right? So things like, if you remember, covert and overt prestige, right? So prestige. So we tend to switch our speech to match who we want to be like, right? Prestige. So if we want to sound like an educated person, we would choose words that would sound very educated like that, right? And there's also covert prestige, if you remember. We want to sound like people who are like us, meaning people who are in the same social class, like that. And there are things like technological advancements, if you remember. So when we have new technologies, right, we need new words to describe them. So language can change in that direction, right? So two main factors, right? So internal and external, and then under internal you have so many mechanisms of changes, and then external also you have many mechanisms of changes. So study that. For this one I forgot to write the page numbers, but it's already in the book, maybe chapter 3. Okay? So that's number 1 that you should know. Number 2. Number 2 will have a question like this, but I might change the word here, but the question will be the same. So Old English, in this case, the word brid, B-R-I-D, means baby bird, right? Modern English has a descendant of this word. And by now, you should be able to guess that brid becomes bird, right? Same thing. Now, between OE, Old English, and PDE, present day English, what type of sound change has operated here? So this is between page 70 to page 73. So, what do you think? Metathesis, right? So, metathesis here. Because metathesis is the switch of two sounds, right? So you switch two sounds. In this case, what do you switch? R and E, right? So you switch. Perhaps it makes it easier to say because of ease of articulation, right? So metathesis. And then between OE and PDE, what type of meaning change has operated, right? So page 81 to 91, if you want to look. From baby to just, what do we use the word bird for today? For every, right? Every kind of bird, and also every generation of birds, right? So in this case, from something that's more or less specific to something that's more general, right? So look for that term in the book, right? Because baby, from now, it doesn't matter whether it's a baby bird or an adult bird, right? So we just use bird for birds, right? Both baby and adult. So from something that's more specific to something that's more general. So think about that. And then prepare 2 other examples of the same type of sound change, including both the Old English words and the present day English for each one. Okay? So prepare. So you could look at the slides also, right? We have many examples on the slides. Explain how figurative shifts affect meaning. So this is part of that chapter also, right? That sometimes it's metaphorical and sometimes words are used outside of the original domain, right? So metaphorically, right? Sometimes you remember the term, so you have to find the term here, but a sour, you remember this one, a sour note, like that. A bitter experience, you remember that? So when, in this case, the words here, sour and bitter, are typically used when we talk about our senses, right? Taste or smell, like that. But then these words are extended outside of the original senses, right? Outside of the original domains. And then we use them with notes, we use them with experience, right? So this is one of the figurative shifts. There are many types of figurative shifts, and this is one of them. So what else do we have here? Now we move on to the next chapter, which is writing, right? So this will be between page 49 and 53, right, in your book, right? You should be able to explain what the runes are, right? Runic letters, remember? The letters that the Germanic people, right? Germanic peoples, the Jutes, the Angles, and the Saxons, right? So the letters that the Germanic peoples use to carve on wood, to carve on stone, like that, right? And what do they have to do with English, so you should know that. Because the Germanic peoples use runes before, right? Before they got the Latin alphabet, right? Before. And then once we got the Latin alphabet, runes faded out of use. And then runes died out by the 10th century. Remember that? And what type of writing system do runes represent? What do you think? We study ideograph, we study pictograph, and so on. Okay? And so related to that is the origin of the modern English alphabet, right? You know that we use the Latin alphabet, right, which we got from what we call the aftermath of the Christianization of the Anglo-Saxon people. So we got the Latin alphabet from the missionaries, right? So this will be between page 49 and 53 also. And then we move on to Indo-European and language family. This is pre-history of English, right? So this is pre-OE, before Old English, right? And you can find the information between page 100 and 109. Which of the following languages is or are not Indo-European, right? So you need to be able to tell the Indo-European and non-Indo-European languages, right? So you should be able to tell it here, right? Indo-European spreads as far as India, right? India. So languages like Sanskrit and Hindi are in this group, right? And then as west as English and as north as Swedish, German, and so on, right? But there are some languages in the Middle East area, like this one, Turkish, for example, that's not in Indo-European, right? And some languages in the Balkan area, right? The Balkans area, like Polish, are not Indo-European. So you should be familiar with things like that. And then Indo-European and then Germanic language. So this one you must know, right? Because English is one of the Germanic languages, right? West Germanic languages. So there is the East branch of Germanic, there's the North branch of Germanic, North including like Scandinavian languages, including Swedish and so on, right? So I'm talking here about Germanic languages, right? So which one of these is or are not Germanic languages, right? So for example, Spanish cannot be. Spanish is in the Italic branch. So you have to find other non-Germanic languages. Remember, you have for Germanic, you have East Germanic, which now is extinct. Gothic. Gothic is a very, very old language, and it didn't survive to the present day, so it died out. We only have like text translation of the Bibles and stuff like that from Gothic. So we know little about Gothic. And we have the West branch of Germanic, right? So English is one, German is one, like that. And then we have North branch of Germanic, right? So including Scandinavian and so on. So under Germanic you have different directions where Germanic people spread, where Germanic people migrated to, right? To the east, to the west, or to the north, and so on. Okay? So you have to find out the details on your own. And then in relation to that, we studied Grimm's law, remember? Because that's a statement with three sub-laws, with three sub-rules that explain how Indo-European languages change into Germanic, right? So, which language family underwent the sound changes summarized by Grimm's law? I just said that. So, I just said that a minute ago. So, you can find the information if you want between these pages. And then you should be able to apply Grimm's law to Indo-European words so that we change them into Germanic or English words in this case. So in number 9, I give you maybe Latin words or Greek words, right? Like here, right here, and then I give you the PDE here, right? So give the specific Grimm's law consonant change that are illustrated by these examples. So remember, Grimm's law has 3 statements, right? 3 statements. So aspirated, stop. Grimm's law only affects stops, right? Only affects stops. So we are talking about stops here, not vowels, not nasal sounds, not fricative sounds, and so on, right? So i.e. Indo-European, right? Aspirated stops, aspirated voice stops, like b, like d, y, like this, right? For ease of articulation, what would happen to these aspirated voice stops? Of course, the aspiration is the first to go, right? If you want to say these sounds more conveniently or more easily, aspiration is the first to go, right? So we'll change to voice stop. Okay, so I'll say just voice stop. And then if it's not aspirated, if it's or just voice stops, like BDG, so what has to go to make it easier to say? The voicing has to go. So voice goes to voiceless, right? So that's the second statement. Now what if, so that's the first, that's the second. What if you have already aspirated voice? Now what if you have voiceless stops? Now to make the stops easier to say, then you change the category, right? From stops to fricative, right? So voiceless, fricative, like that. So there are only three separate, 3 sub rules, 3 sub laws, right, for Grimm's. So let's see which of these, right? So which of these laws applies to each case here? Okay. Genu to knee, for example, you should be able to tell, right? And now, again, you have to pay attention to stops, right? Stop sounds. You are not looking at the vowels here, or you don't look at the N. You don't look at the U, right? And one more thing that I will ask. So you know that Grimm's law changes Indo-European words into Germanic, right? Into Germanic words, and English is one of the Germanic languages. Now, we have our native English words here. Knee, heart, horn, father, 200, and night, right? Now, after Grimm's laws took effect, we have these native English words. However, during the Renaissance time, we reborrowed all the Latin words once again. So we have 2 words that mean the same and 2 words that have the same origin, right? So knee, you have words that come from genu also. I don't know if you know this or not, but you know the word genuflect? Genuflect is to knee down, like this when you pray. So we reborrowed Latin words or Greek words and then use them together, right, with our own native English, native Germanic words after Grimm's laws took effect, right? So heart, we use the word heart, right, in everyday word. You are in my heart, like that. But we also reborrowed the Latin term, which has the same origin as heart, right? But which was affected by Grimm's law. Now, card. What word do you know that has this part in it? Cardiologist. You know, cardiologist is a doctor who is specialized in heart problems, right? Cardiovascular exercise, like exercises that will help your heart and help your blood, like that. So find those words for me, like Cornu, you should be able to find. Parter, you should be able to find. Duo, dual, you should be able to find. 100 with CENT, you should be able to find. Night, noctis, noctur, you should be able to find. Right? So think about this. Okay. And then I'll ask you to fill the blanks, short answers with some historical events, major historical events that are important in the development of the English language, including 10 to 13. What influence this Christianization had on Old English? Think, vocab, and writing, right? So remember, the Anglo-Saxon people, the Germanic peoples, in other words, the Anglo-Saxon people were pagans, right? Remember, they were pagans. They did not practice Christianity, right? So people from Rome, missionaries, have to come to convert them, right, to be Christians, right? And not only in religious sense, but when they came, they brought with them the writing system, remember? And also vocab, right? So we borrowed a lot of words from Latin, right? So think about these two domains, and then you can explain. Who was the Venerable Bede, and why was he an important figure in the history of English, right? So I explained that most of what we know, right? Most of what we know about the history of Anglo-Saxon people, the history of the Anglo-Saxon people was due to this guy, right? This guy was a monk, and he wrote a church history. Remember, we talked about that church history about the Anglo-Saxon people, and he wrote based on secondary sources, right? Secondary sources meaning things that he didn't see himself, right? So he based his history on other people's histories, in other words. And then he wrote about how the Germanic peoples came to England and so on, right? So you can find this information between page 151 and 157. Okay. Number 12, when the Anglo-Saxons began their invasion of Britain during the 5th century, which languages were already spoken there? Remember, the native, real native people were Celtic people, right? And they spoke Celtic languages, and Celtic languages are also one of the branches of the Indo-European language family. Remember, and when the Anglo-Saxon came, what happened to these Celtic people? They were driven into different corners of England, including Wales, including Ireland, including Scotland nowadays. Right? So they were poor people, right, who were invaded by the Anglo-Saxon people. Right? And what is the Danelaw? So that came up when we talked about the Scandinavian people invading Britain, right? And then they fought with King Alfred, right? And King Alfred won out, and he said that let's establish a truce between us, and let's set a line, right, between your region and my area, your territory and my territory, like that. So Danelaw, Danish people, right, Scandinavian people. Law, governed by, right. So you can find these issues, these topics between 151 to 157. Okay. Then we talked about Old English linguistics, right? Old English words, Old English linguistics, and between page 163 to 170, right? Why did Celtic leave only a small impression on the English language, right? So you have to think about language context situation, right? Language context situation, which is related to the first question that I asked. So language context situation. I said if the language context situation is intense, right? It's intense. It means you have a lot of influence from that language, right? You borrow not only words that you don't have, but you also borrow grammatical patterns or even grammatical words like prepositions or even pronouns, which you do not normally do, right? If language contact situation is superficial, right? So you can guess that the language contact situation between the Celtic people and the Germanic people was very superficial, right? And you won't have a large number of loan words, but perhaps place names like that, names that they already used to call a particular place. Give two ways of how Old English words are formed, right? You remember we talked about compounding, derivation. Let's see, compounding, derivation. You know derivation by prefixing, affixing, right? We put prefixes like don, ship, and other suffixes, right? Prefixes also, and suffixes also, and compounding, right? These are two main ways. And then borrowing is one main way, right? But perhaps that lies outside of the scope of this one. What are the main sources? What are the main source languages of loans in Old English, and what domains do we borrow from these sources? Remember, depending on the context situation, we have Latin, we have Celtic, we have what else? Latin, Celtic, Scandinavian, right? So you should know like what domains we borrow from Latin, right? What domains we borrow from Celtic, what domains we borrow from Scandinavian. Depending again on the language context situation, if it's intense, then we borrow a lot of things including grammatical terms, grammatical patterns. But if language context situation is very superficial, we only borrow like place names, right? So you can guess Latin, Celtic, and Scandinavian. Number 17, skirt, get, give, kettle are all Scandinavian borrowings that in most cases replace OE word. What's about the above words that allows us to recognize them as Scandinavian words? You remember there's a sound change process called palatalization in Old English, right? Where Old English words from Indo-European, when Indo-European words become Old English words, there is this process called palatalization, right? So sounds that are not in the palatal area, right, came to be pronounced in the palatal area due to some influence, like a front vowel or a semi-vowel, a semi-front vowel afterwards, right? That comes after, like that. So SK, right, spelled as SC in Old English, right? So SK, meaning pronunciation, SK, spelled out as SC, written as SC in Old English, right? So in Indo-European, SC words were pronounced SK. Skirt, shirt, skirt, like that, and so on. But in Old English, SC is pronounced as a hook, remember? So it means that palatalization already took place between Indo-European and Old English, right? That's why SC in Old English, I told you, SC is pronounced sh, right? Like SC is pronounced SC is pronounced ash, right? So it means that palatalization already occurred in Old English. That's why ASC is pronounced ash, like the remains of things when you burn things, right? So These words I told you are Scandinavian because there's no palatalization, right? Because they came after palatalization took place, right? Palatalization took place from IE, Indo-European, to OD, right? So that's why in Old English, SC is pronounced ash already. But these words came after, right? Scandinavian attacks when? The 8th century, right? The 8th century, the 9th century, around that time. So these words, we borrow them. We borrow them from Scandinavian languages, right? So there's no palatalization. So you can say SK. G also, G in Old English. If you have a front vowel after G, like words like I will write it here, okay? GEAR is pronounced year, like that, right? So we palatalize this because of the front vowel. Remember in Old English, G before a front vowel is pronounced as a J. Because again, palatalization. So words that we borrow after palatalization occurred, like get, we don't pronounce it as yet. Or give, we don't say give, we say give, right? So it means that these are all Scandinavian borrowings. So we can distinguish it that way. Because or else, they all would become J, right? They all would have become J, right? If they were Old English words or Anglo-Saxon words. Okay? So these are all in your book also, so you need to read the details. You should be able to explain E mutation, E umlaut, remember? E umlaut, E mutation, kind of like palatalization, but not exactly. Because of the influence of the front vowel, right? Front vowel or semi-front vowel, E or Y after a word. So speaker anticipate the coming of E or J. So vowel here, right? So the vowel here will be raised one step. That's called E mutation. And you'll see the effects or the aftermath of E umlaut, E mutation, front mutation in irregular words like mouse, mice, goose, geese, long, length, food, feed, like that. So study this part, okay, page 185. And I'll have you do grammatical analysis. So I'll have a series of questions like this. A word that contains an example of palatalization, right? So G should be pronounced J, like that. So you have to find words like that. Or another word that contains, this one is the same. 21, an example with a consonant cluster that has disappeared, PDE, and so on. So you have to base your answers from 19 to 31 based on this passage. Okay? So this passage you study on your own. But I give you the glosses here. All the words that you need. Excluding pronouns, because you already know. Pronouns like you or I. You already have the tables, right? Excluding pronouns, excluding say or that, excluding all those grammatical things. But you have all the clauses here that you need. So you should be able to translate this passage, right? It's a passage about the fall of Adam and Eve. So in this story, God is talking to Adam and Eve. You know that story, right? Where Eve ate the apple tree because of the snake, because of the serpent told her to do that. The serpent seduced her to eat the apple, and then God was angry, and then God just kicked them out of heaven like that. Now to help you, there is the PDE version, present day English version on this website. So, but but the word order will not be the same, and the translation will be worded beautifully, meaning they use present-day English, and the word order might be different, and the translation is not word by word. As you know, Old English has a different word order, right? But this will help in terms of understanding, okay? So line by line translation, but not word by word translation. So you can check it out. You can check it out here to help you translate. And I already give you the glosses here. It will help you translate also. Like one, ex welches. I think I give you ex welches. Also, moreover, like that. Also, moreover, the snake was blah blah blah. Right? Natter is snake. Right? You have that word also in the gloss. So you'll find examples of things that I asked from this story, like find an example of palatalization, right? So you look for G or you look for C, right? The word that is spelled with a C, where you have a front vowel close by, like that. So fill in. And you have 1 week to prepare, right? So you can bring this to the exam, okay? So this, where's my marker here? So bring this thing, bring this. Whatever you want to write, write. Write your translation. Underline things that you want. So bring this plus 1 A4 sheet, where you can, I call it cheat sheet, where you can write anything, okay, on that A4. Just one, front and back. And why the reason? The reason is, you guys, the reason is, if I say bring whatever, then you bring everything, and you will lose time, you waste time flipping through the pages. One A4 sheet is meant to help you organize the information. So what are the things that you don't know? What are the things that you need help with? Put them on there, okay? Because if I say, bring your book, bring your dictionary, you will waste time flipping through, because people will not organize their information if they know that anything can be brought into the exam. So 1 A4 is good, because it will help you organize the information, write in small fonts, small type, whatever, right? A4 and this thing, okay? This thing, other things are not allowed. So A4 and this page, okay? So translate this, and then you should be able to find things like, find a genitive noun here, right? Find a dative plural noun here, right? So this should be ready for answering, okay? On Monday, this should be well prepared for just answering the questions. You're not going to come into the room and translate it on Monday.